With the first phase of Cataclysm Classic in full swing, you probably noticed Death Knights, especially Blood Death Knights, absolutely crushing it in your dungeons and raids. So if you're looking to get in on the fun, this guy is going to make that grind from 55 to 85 lightning quick so you could start jumping straight into that end game content. Let's get into it. The strategy we're going to be focusing on here is utilizing the Death Knight's AoE tanking capabilities. You're going to be taking advantage of the Blood Spec survivability, but be doing a ton of damage. And playing a tank spec, you might be asking, how are we going to be doing a lot of damage? Well, we're going to be doing something I like to call abusing the system. That system in this case being the Vengeance ability that only tank specs have access to. Vengeance is going to give us attack power based on the amount of damage that is being done to us. So by always fighting 5 to 8 mobs at any given time, we're always going to have Vengeance max out and we're going to be blowing through quests. Let's take a look at the spec that we're going to be running for this strategy. So I'm not going to go through every node. Pause the video here if you want to take a closer look. But I'd like to highlight a couple important ones. So we're going to be foregoing a lot of the damage reduction and healing nodes, such as Toughness and Rune Tap, in favor of more damaging abilities, such as Blood Caked Blade, which is going to give our auto attacks a 30% chance to deal an additional 25% weapon damage, plus an additional 25% if both our diseases are up, which they always will be. We're also going to be taking Butchery, which after a kill is going to give us 20 runic power. Now these after kill effects are going to be very strong for this spec because we're going to be killing a lot of mobs very quickly. Another one of those after kill effects we're going to be taking is Unholy Command, which can reset the cooldown of our death grip if after we kill. This is going to be strong for gripping in those ranged mobs. We're also going to be taking Morbidity, which is going to increase the damage of our Death and Decay by 30%, which is very strong because we're going to always be AoEing. Next, let's take a look at the glyphs we're going to be running for this build. So for our prime glyphs, we're going to be running Glyph of Heartstrike, which is going to increase our Heartstrike damage by 30%. This is our bread and butter cleave ability. It's going to account for a large portion of our damage, so this is going to be very strong. We're also going to be running Glyph of Deathstrike, which is going to increase our Deathstrike damage based on the amount of runic power we have banked up. Deathstrike is a very hard-hitting ability, so this will make it hit even harder. We're also going to be running Glyph of Death and Decay, increase duration of our Death and Decay by 50%. This is going to allow us to have 2/3 uptime on our Death and Decay, paired with our increased damage from our talents is going to be a lot of AoE damage. For our major glyphs, we're going to be taking Glyph of Dark Sucker. This is going to allow us to take advantage of the global cooldown reduction from Unholy Presence while healing us for a ton. Again, another super powerful after kill effect. We're going to be taking Bone Shield. This is going to increase our movement speed, so when we're not Unholy Presence, we can still maintain that additional 15% movement speed. Finally, we're going to be taking Glyph of Blood Boil, which is going to increase our AoE radius of Blood Boil by 50%. Now, you can pretty much choose whatever minor glyphs that you want. There's nothing that's very consequential. I would just recommend picking up Glyph of Blood Tap so you're not taking that additional damage when you're blood tapping. As far as stat priority goes, it's not going to be too consequential for you. We're going to focus obviously first on our core stats, which are strength and stamina. And then I like haste for this build. It's going to increase our rune regeneration speed, hit, so we're hitting those death strikes and heart strikes, and then crit. Mastery is not going to give us too much of a benefit here. Mastery for Blood Death Knights is going to increase the shield gain from our death strikes, which is not going to be helping us do any more damage here. Now let's get into our gameplay rotation and cooldowns. So before we start combat, we're going to want our Horn of Winter and Bone Shield always up. Horn of Winter is going to give us increased strength, and Bone Shield is going to give us a 20% damage reduction plus 2% overall damage. Once we have our mobs rounded up, we're going to throw down a Death and Decay, and then we want to get our dots ticking. So if you're under level 81, throw out a Plague Strike and an Icy Touch, or if you're over level 81, you could use Outbreak. And then Pestilence is going to spread our dots across the board. Once we have our Blood Plague ticking, that's going to give us additional bonuses like Crimson Scourge, which gives us free blood boils, or Blood Caked Blades, which gives us increased melee damage. Once we have our dots spread, then we can simply start cleaving and AoEing with our Heart Strike and Blood Boil, and spending our runic power on either Rune Strike or Death Coil, depending upon your level. Now let's take a quick look at our cooldowns. We're going to be hitting Blood Tap on cooldown, which is going to immediately activate a Blood Rune and convert it into a Death Rune. Death Runes can be used as Blood, Unholy, or Frost Runes. Another ability we want to use when we're low on runes is Empower Rune Weapon. This is going to immediately activate all of our runes and give us 25 runic power. For a big damage burst, we're going to be hitting Dancing Rune Weapon. This is going to summon a rune weapon that's going to copy all of our abilities for 12 seconds. Now, little known interaction with this ability, you can actually hit your Outbreak or any of your disease abilities, and it will apply double diseases to your target. Another cooldown that we have at our disposal that many people may not think is a damaging ability is Vampiric Blood. Vampiric Blood is going to increase our maximum health by 15% and our healing taken by 25%. Now, by this maximum health increase, it's going to scale our vengeance, because our vengeance is based on the amount of health we have. So for a short time, we'll be able to acquire more attack power from our vengeance buff. Lastly, we'll want to maximize the uptime of our Raise Dead ability. This will summon a ghoul to fight by our side for 1 minute with a 3-minute cooldown. So we'll be able to maintain a 33% uptime on that for some extra damage. And then, of course, Death Knights have access to the Army of the Dead ability, which is going to summon an army of ghouls to fight by your side that will taunt any targets. So we're going to save this for fighting any elites or hard-hitting mobs. Just a few more tips before we end the video. One, we always want to keep our weapon rune forged. Now, most Bloodspec Death Knights you'll see will be using the Stoneskin Gargoyle rune. I would highly recommend for this strategy to use Rune of the Fallen Crusader, which gives us a chance on hit to heal for 3% of our health and increase your strength by 15% for 15 seconds. And since Death Knights are such a viable solo questing class, I highly recommend that you pick up at least 1 or even 2 gathering professions. I took mining on my Death Knight, and just gathering the profession nodes out in the world while questing had to equate to at least 1 million XP over the course of leveling. And aside from the XP benefits, the high-level profession once you hit max level will be a good source of gold income to help boost you into that endgame content. You're going to wind up grinding the profession at max level anyway. You might as well get the XP bonus from it while leveling. As far as add-ons go, I like to keep my game pretty bare bones and uncluttered. So I'm just using Questy right now for quest tracking, Rare Scanner for rare mobs, and Recount for damage. If you have any recommendations for good leveling or profession add-ons, I'd love to see them in the comments below. If you found this guide helpful and enjoyed the video, hit that subscribe button for more WoW content. Thanks for watching.